Webinar. As soon as I can get my glasses here on with Swami Kriyananda's Living Wisely, Living Well. Beautiful book. And we are on December 6th. Some conventions must be changed, certainly. Racial discrimination in America is a national disgrace, for it places fetters on the egos of all who practice it. So too is the caste system in India. That system, however, had an enlightened origin before it became hereditary. It pointed the way to liberation for all mankind. When caste became hereditary, the same abomination appeared as with racial discrimination in America. Everyone on earth is your brother or sister in God. Respect all as fellow pilgrims on the path to our final abode of bliss. It's always a joy to speak of the saints, and as I was preparing for this talk this evening, I was thinking of Swami HariDas. If you ever have a chance to read his books, he passed some decades ago. But again, as is true of all these saints, he is truly a living presence. Swami met him many years ago when Swami HariDas was on a world tour. And Swami Kriyananda met him in the elevator there, I believe, at Mount Washington in Los Angeles. And he asked HariDas, he said, "Swamiji, how are you feeling?" And Swami HariDas said, "Swimmingly." And I'll never forget that, because when you see his face, if you have seen pictures there in books and so forth of his face, you'll know what I'm talking about. He looks, and the best I can describe is he looks like he's from another planet. He has these huge ears, which of course are very expressive of generosity, as they say, and beaming face and eyes. Well, Swami HariDas in his books spent many years traveling as a pilgrim, and he saw everything as Ram, and his mantra was Shri Ram, Jai Ram Om, and he had many adventures. And one particular adventure, I remember, he was at a train station, and there was a rowdy there, and he began, pushing and shoving HariDas around, and the disciples, who of course were just horrified. But HariDas, once the episode passed, said all he saw, and it was absolutely the truth, all he saw was Ram. And so here was Ram coming in this form and creating a bunch of mischief, and then Ram left him at peace. And he would be in different caves, and some of the sadhus who really weren't really sadhus, I don't know what they were, would again be battling with HariDas and creating trouble. And again, all he saw was Ram. It was a perfect example of these great ones that truly have the vision of God. They don't see anything else but God. And so if Ram wanted to treat HariDas roughly, fine, it was still Ram. And if Ram was there to treat him to a lovely meal, thank you, that was also Ram. He didn't see anything but that. And that, of course, is the vision that we are all aspiring to. Swami talks about in this little reading about, the horrors of discrimination. And raised as I was in Los Angeles, I didn't have really a lot of direct experience in that, except from what my mother would tell me. She was born in Russia and escaped persecution in the early 20s when Lenin was there as the dictator. And my grandfather, her father, escaped with his life. And because she was a Russian Jew, during that time, when she arrived, actually it was some decades later, there was real discrimination against communists and so forth, as there is today, really. And so she did quite an amazing thing as a linguist. She had a very thick Russian accent, born in Kharkov, Russia, Kiev. And somehow she was able to get rid of her accent. And I haven't come across anyone that I have ever met that was able to somehow, some way get rid of her accent. And why did she do it? Because there was discrimination. And she really was feeling that she needed to become more of an American and less of an immigrant. She came to America when she was 5. And so this is what she did. This is what people very often have to do, whether they are of color, or they're gay, or they're of some odd mixture, or whatever it might be, and they find that the persecution that comes their way is so rough that they have to find ways to fight back. And of course there's many ways to do that. But there's nothing better than unconditional love. One time, Yogananda was in Catalina. This is an island off of Los Angeles in California. And so in that beautiful setting, they went into a restaurant. There was a handful of devotees. And the waitress said, and the place was empty, the waitress says, "I'm sorry, but there's no more tables available." And Durga Mata, very fiery disciple of Yogananda's and a highly advanced soul liberated in this life, she was so upset. And so Yogananda said, "Well, let's not bother, we'll go elsewhere." And so they left. But Durga Mata stayed to give that woman quite a tongue lashing. "Do you have any idea what you've done? This man is a God man, and you've thrown him out of your restaurant. Shame on you." And so with these experiences that people encounter, racial discrimination and on it goes, some people are more retiring and they just leave it and fine. Others, like Durga Mata, they do not leave it. And they roll up their sleeves and give people a real to-do. And that's very appropriate too. And so for us, we do very, very well to keep the company of the saints, because they point the way toward how we should behave. And the joy of these great ones is that they always behave perfectly. How can it be otherwise? They are merged with God, God who is perfect. As it says in the Bible, "Be ye therefore perfect." That's what we all aspire to. And Swami Kriyananda has so many delightful stories of how Yogananda appeared in public in situations that for some would be extremely awkward, but he handled it with total grace. One time there was a famous movie actor, and Yogananda was sitting there in the train right across from this fellow, and this fellow was making all kinds of faces. And it was because he was not happy with who was in his compartment, this dark-skinned yogi. And so at one point, Yogananda said to him, "Why are you making all of these faces?" And the man was just stunned by such a frank statement. And so they began to talk. And the man said, basically, "It's none of your business." He says, "It is my business because I'm having to look at you." He was sitting right across the aisle. And so they began talking. And so at one point, Yogananda said, "I'll tell you what," after some time in discussion about spiritual matters, he said, let's do this. If you can convince me," this is a very famous actor, "if you can convince me that your way is the better way, I will follow you. But if I can convince you that my way is the better way, being the yogi, you must follow me." So they continued to talk, And Yogananda said that he won the bet and he was spared being an actor. And this famous actor then followed him and went into a high state of consciousness at the end of his life, was able even to predict his death. Amazing. And so for us, as we enjoy these wonderful stories of these great ones, we need to take them to heart. Because in order to act appropriately in every situation, one can't do it if the heart is shut down. One can't do it if the mind is weakened by worry or fear or negativity, all the things that can plague us if we let our guard down. And so, in time, we begin to understand that in order for us to negotiate in this world, we have to be very, very childlike. And we have to keep the company of the saints. And we have to understand, rather than complicating our lives, as Yogananda said, people are so skillful in their ignorance, rather than complicating our lives by constantly being swayed this way and that by the Maya, whether it's something that's internal or external, we have to think more in terms of when I get myself in trouble, perhaps through judgment, whatever it might be, then race to the Guru's feet and hold on to the feet of these great ones. And by doing that, it's pure magic. Our consciousness lifts. And we think, what was I being troubled about? Those people were acting rudely, it's true, and it bothered me. But now that my consciousness has been uplifted, I understand that everyone has a burden. More and more, I've been having fun with this thought that we're all climbing a mountain. And it's fairly steep. And the winds are blowing at times, and it's cold, and sometimes we slip, and so forth. And so when I think when people's behavior, including my own, is a little off, I think, well, they just slipped, and they're saying, you know, they're perhaps voicing their frustration, and they're acting in ways that are such that people feel like they're being, you know, beaten on by this individual. But it's only because the person slipped. And that's exactly what it's about for us when our consciousness slips downward. And so it really is a fabulous thing, and that's quite an understatement thing to do. As Yogananda said, little do people know what radical changes are possible through prayer, that again and again, we look to prayer as the Savior, as we look to the Gurus as the Savior, to lift our consciousness. Because many times when we see people that are behaving inappropriately, we just aren't being compassionate. If that person, and I really feel it's true, even those that are really acting horrendously, if we were to sit down with them and have a soul-to-soul talk, springing out of that experience would be this open-hearted, unconditional love for them, because we would understand them. But the fact of the matter is most of the time with colleagues and even friends and even close dear ones that we love, you know, for many obvious reasons, there isn't the time, or we don't make the time, or the time isn't right. And so we just leave stressed from a time that's challenging. If there's anything challenging in this world, again, one of my friends said something very funny. She said, I love community, it's people I can't stand. And of course, she was just having fun, but when I bring it to mind, I always have to smile or laugh out loud, because that is the issue, again and again and again, that we can, you know, love this world, but the next door neighbor we can't make any headway with. You know, we've told them a number of times that we don't like when they play the radio at 5 in the morning. And, you know, we're still sleeping, and don't they realize? But they just never get it. And so what are we going to do about that? So what we find, really, in this world, as we have the right attitude, which is everything hangs on right attitude, is that Divine Mother makes no mistakes. She never makes any mistakes. And what she gives to us internally and what she gives to us externally is something that is meant to help us. It's never meant to hurt us, ever. And I have shared from time to time, and it's worth sharing because I haven't had the experience before or since, but at Ananda, especially in the early years before Ananda had expanded to different states in the United States, not to mention different countries and so forth, you often would work with people over, let's say, a decade in a lot of different situations. And so in this particular situation, this fellow was my boss, and then I was his boss, and then he was my boss, and he was his boss. It was kind of some kind of a ping pong match, or a tennis match. And I didn't get it in the beginning because this fellow irritated me quite a lot. And then, a couple years would pass, and then we would switch roles. And after a while, I had to smile because there was no question in my mind it was a setup. And now, I love this person. I don't see them all that often, but I think if I did, even on a daily basis, I would love this person because it was so exaggerated that it became clear to me that it was Divine Mother in the form of this individual with a personality that I found absolutely grating. But when I went deeper into the experience, I must admit, he had a wonderful soul. He had a wonderful spirit of dedication and sincerity and all of that I had to truly admire and do admire. And so it's really a matter as we grow in brotherhood and in caring deeply for one another that we, of course, start with ourselves. We have to work on that, and that's not always easy. That can be a campaign that can last some years even, but as we begin to love ourselves in the highest sense and love the silly ego that is our sparring partner, and we begin to feel a sense of growing peace, then more and more we can take on the grand project, which truly it is, which is to love everyone as our own self. And it's not anything that we are dreaming up as an affirmation, love this world and so forth and so on. When we reach the heights, remember we've come down from the heights and we are in a state of perfection now and going back into the light, we have to understand that the omnipresent blissful nature is really who we are, as the saints are examples of that. And as we can appreciate that, why not practice omnipresence now? Right now. And begin to expand our consciousness and expand the natural sympathies of the heart. All of these things are very, very important through our seva, through our meditation. I remember many years ago when I thought to myself, I'm just not that interested in just finding liberation for myself. And I thought that was kind of a odd thought because we're all striving for liberation and so forth, but I thought, my real motivation when it comes right down to it, and it's nothing new, really from Swami Kriyananda, as he was leaving New York, he had read the autobiography of Yogi, he was crossing the states to see his guru in Los Angeles. He said, I had two things in mind, to find God and to share God with others. And I found in my own self that just to meditate for my own liberation at one point became dry. I thought, well, gee, at one point we're all going to reach that omnipresent state. Why not begin practicing it right now? And think in terms of those that don't know about meditation, don't have an inner life. Over the incarnations, we have been helped so many times and supported so many times by people that perhaps we never knew. So why can't we begin to send out that invisible light? And it really is true. When I stumbled upon prayer as being an instrument for the light, it changed my life. And now I think to myself, what do I love the most, meditation or prayer? We're talking about Kriya Yoga, the key. I think, well, okay, I love Kriya, but wow, prayer has saved my life and continues to save my life again and again and again. It gives us a vacation from ourselves, which we need, more often than not, but it really does a real great good. And there's been many, many incredible studies where people will pray for others that are across the sea even, and those people will be healed, and their lives will be enhanced immeasurably by someone, again, that they may never ever meet. And so it's good to reflect when we think in terms of world brotherhood, of how many brothers and sisters, even in the heavenly regions, are praying for us and supporting us. We are not going to find God on our own merits. It's not going to happen. When we awaken from this dream, I think we'll be stunned by the kind of support that we have been given by the great ones, of course, but by so many, 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 many fellow seekers and others. And so, why not start now? As Swamiji is always saying, do it now. Why not start now by giving that support through our seva, through our meditation, and begin to see truly that we are all brothers and sisters in God. And so, in conclusion, do keep in mind that, as I was talking to a friend today, the tests that we get from this great Maya, they're just unending. So what are we going to do? Change that? No, they're meant to help us, but they are unending, like waves. But what we can do is change ourselves, and as we're able to change ourselves, we find that we're strengthened by our tests, by our challenges, inwardly and outwardly, and we find our heart expanding and expanding so that we can begin to glimpse, really glimpse, what it will be like in time to awaken from this dream. So, God bless you all, and again, it's a joy to be with you, and as always, as I like to say, keep up the good work. Om Shanti.